Flo, can you give us a recap on what Frontify Kitchen is and what excites you about it?
Yeah, so Frontify Kitchen is this little corner on our website where we share some of our explorations with new ideas and technologies. And, it's a little bit like a test kitchen where you walk in and then you can discover all these like ingredients and techniques and recipes and eventually try some of the new dishes. But, some of them don't taste right, but some do and eventually make it onto the main menu. And opening up like this lets us have conversations with our customers about futures that don't exist yet. I think what excites me most right now is just the sheer amount of technologies like large language models, vision language models, and even new Frontify APIs. We have all these powerful tools, but really to make them useful for our customers, we need to find a good configuration.
I know that, for example, one of the things you've been looking into is collaboration and specifically how we collaborate around creative work and where those processes slow down. What's kind of the fundamental challenge that you're trying to solve here?
Even if you have your do's and don'ts documented, mistakes still happen, right? That's why reviews and asset approval workflows are really useful, but at the same time, they can become a bottleneck. And it's not so much that the review itself takes so much time, but it's everything around it. The waiting, the context switching, the back and forth on minor issues like a wrong color or a color contrast that is off, or using an old logo or font. I don't know about you, but being a nitpicker also doesn't feel great, neither for the person giving the feedback nor receiving it. And the fact is, our customers spend a lot of time with these reviews, and we think that we can automate parts of it. But the challenge is really to have the right context to do it.
First of all, I relate to being a nitpicker. So you mentioned context. Would you mean that the context on what correct looks like for the brand would then come from the brand guidelines versus workflows, for example, is where you then review the assets?
Exactly. I mean, if you want to provide meaningful feedback, you need to have the right context. You need to know the project, the brief, and what guidelines apply. And if you think about it, we now have machines that like to read documentation any time of the day and don't care if it's updated a lot. With vision language models, we can identify what's in an asset, like text, images, logos, disclaimers. And so we naturally started wondering, how could we use this technology to look at assets and see if they follow the rules or not? And this led us to our first app, the Brand Check, which can review assets and then look for issues based on your guidelines. And we saw the potential, but we were also wondering how could we bring this closer into Frontify, like into your existing workflows? And yeah, that eventually led us to Specs.
I'm sure everyone is wondering right now, what is Specs?
Yeah, so Specs is this nitpicker. It's the one who knows your guidelines in and out, knows all the rules, has a sharp set of eyes, maybe wearing glasses like me, but really knows everything in and out. And you can ask Specs to review your assets and get feedback on it. But instead of chatting with Specs, we found that Frontify already has much better interfaces to integrate all of this. So here's how it works. You invite Specs as a reviewer to your project, just like any other collaborator, which gives you control over what it can see and do. In your project, you create review workflows with statuses like design review and set up checklists with tasks in natural language. For example, to check text for spelling and grammar, review logo usage and placement, or check for fonts after rebranding. Then you assign Specs directly to specific tasks. The cool thing is you can reference specific guideline pages, include assets as references, or even delegate things like disclaimers to the legal team. So when assets come in, Specs analyzes them, leaves comments about issues, and even makes suggestions with references to your guidelines. And of course, it checks off the task. So whether it's issues with fonts, colors, images, or text, Specs will find the issue before anyone else.
So it sounds like Specs basically catches the tactical stuff that previously would have slowed people down and then delegates it to the right people where needed. I can really see how for a creative director, for example, that would really be useful because they'll be able to focus more on strategy rather than things like disclaimers.
Absolutely. And, if you think about it, there's even more potential to move this earlier in the process. So if Specs can review work in progress before it's even submitted, even better. So really what we're trying to do is speed things up reduce the back and forth, and ultimately make more time for human judgment and creativity.
That sounds really exciting. Thank you so much, Phil.
Thank you.